Good afternoon everyone and welcome to our Getting Started with Text Talker webinar. My name is Trevor and I'll be giving this little tour of Text Talker today. If you have questions as we're going through, feel free to type in those questions as we go and I will answer those at the end. But if you think of a question partway through, then just type it when you think of it, and then we'll come to those questions at the end, unless one of my colleagues dives in and answers it in the meantime. Okay, so let's get started. So, Text Talker is a text communication grid set that's available for Grid 3 and Grid for iPad, and it's designed primarily for fast and efficient message generation. It includes tools such as word prediction, chat history, quick phrases, and conversation switching to make communication as fast as possible, and that's really what this grid set is all about. It includes tools such as word prediction, chat history, quick phrases, and conversation switching to make communication as fast as possible, and that's really what this grid set is all about. Okay, just bear with me for 1 second. We've got apparently a problem with the sound echoing, so I'm just going to see if I can address that before we go any further. So bear with me for 1 second, please. We've got apparently a problem with the sound echoing, so I'm just going to see if I can address that before we go any further. So bear with me for 1 second, please. Okay. Does that sound any better? I think I figured out what the problem was. So hopefully the echo will have died down now. Great. Okay, sorry about that. Let's just recap that first little bit and start again. Okay, so Text Talker, as I said, it's a text communication grid that's all about generating messages as quickly and efficiently as possible. And the idea is that for someone who's using it, is to give them the tools to stay in as close to real time in a conversation as it's possible to be using AAC. So that's what it's built around. It's designed for fully literate users, and a variety of different access methods can be used, including touch, switch, and when used within Grid 3, also eye gaze or head pointer. I'll just open up the grid set so that you can see it. You'll see that a fair degree of accuracy is needed. The cells are reasonably small, and so I would point out at this point that if somebody needs larger cells, then Fast Talker 3 is something that might be considered, because as you can see the cells are slightly larger, and Fast Talker 3 also includes accessible apps such as email, text messaging, web browser and so on, whereas Text Talker is purely focused on communication, and so for people who are able to use other apps for things like texting and emailing, or switch between different grid sets. So that's just to give you a comparison between the two text-based AAC resources there. Let's jump back into Text Talker. And what we're going to do first of all is get to know the home screen here. So it's obviously all based around an on-screen keyboard. And at the top you have what we call the chat writing area, and this is where you compose a message. So as I type, my message appears up there. And then I can hit the speak cell over here.
Hello everyone.
My message will be spoken, and then I can clear that message and the chat writing area is reset, ready for the next one. Also in this area, you've got to jump to quick phrases. I'm going to be showing you what's in there in a few moments. But just to show you that that jump is there, you also have an undo cell. That is to undo the last writing action that you did. And again, I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment. Above the keyboard here, there are two rows of prediction cells, word prediction and chat history. And then finally, at the bottom of the screen, we've got to jump to settings and also cells for temporarily storing and retrieving phrases. And again, I'll show you how that works in a moment or two. So the first thing that I want to show you is the word prediction within Text Talker. Now, Grid 3 uses SwiftKey word prediction, which many of you will be familiar with because it's probably on your mobile phone. It's the world's best prediction engine. And the SwiftKey word prediction will suggest the completion of the word that you're currently typing, and then after that, the most likely next word. And in most cases, you should find that you only need to type the first two or three letters of a word, and it should be predicted. And very often the next word will then be suggested without you having to type any of it at all. So I'm going to show you an example sentence, and I'm going to use the prediction cells in this row only, whenever possible. And the sentence that I'm going to type is, "Could you call me a taxi, please?" So keep your eye on those prediction cells as I type. So with just a single click, we've got our first word.
Could.
And then we've got our next word suggested.
You.
Again, the first letter was all I needed to get
Cool.
the next word.
Me. A. Taxi. Please. Could you call me a taxi, please?
Okay, so you can see that the word prediction really speeds up text entry if full use is made of it. And Grid will learn your usage, so the more that you use it, the better that prediction is going to get if you've given Grid permission to learn the phrases as you type them. Now the word prediction also can handle typos. If you maybe hit the cell next to the one you were really aiming at, what we advise people to do is just carry on typing. Don't start getting involved with using the backspace and correcting the error. Just keep on going. So let's say I was going to type the word could again, but rather than the O, I hit the P by mistake, but I just carry on typing. And as I do so, you can see that even though I've made a spelling mistake there, I've hit the wrong key, SwiftKey is clever enough to still predict what I was trying to type. So that's really good. If you just happen to hit the wrong key, don't get involved with the backspace, just carry on typing. So I'm going to clear that. Now sometimes you might just hit the clear cell by mistake, or you might have spoken a sentence and cleared it, and then someone asks you to repeat what you just said because they didn't catch it. So if the last thing you did was select clear, then the undo button is going to undo the clear, like so. So that can save a lot of typing. And undo as well will undo whatever the last writing thing you did was. So if I started to type a word here, and let's say I was going to select hello, but I selected here's by mistake, I could undo that, and it will take me back to where I was before I selected that word from the prediction. So then I can correct that and choose the right one. So if I hit the wrong thing in prediction, I don't need to go back and clear it and start that whole thing again. I can just back up one step. And if I just typed a single letter and I type undo, then that's the last thing I did. So then that will act like a backspace. So it's like a Swiss Army knife is the undo cell. It'll do whatever the last writing action you did, it will undo it. Okay, so we've looked at these word prediction cells here, but I'm sure you'll have noticed that the cells above there contain whole phrases. And this feature is called chat history, and it's designed to give a really quick way of generating whole sentences. So chat history contains 5,000 phrases when Grid is first installed. But then with your permission, Grid 3 will learn every phrase that you say and add it to your chat history, and then give you a really quick way of saying it again. So again, the more that you use the software, the better the chat history suggestions are going to be. So the main thing you need to know about chat history is that you don't really start with the first word of the sentence you want to say. Rather than that, you think about the key word that's in the sentence and start to type that. So imagine I wanted to order a cup of coffee in a cafe. I would start with the word coffee. So you can see that after typing just 3 letters, I've got some phrases here regarding coffee, because coffee is the key word in that. Specifically, I'd like coffee with milk, and that isn't been predicted here yet, so I can click the arrow here for more, and now the phrase that I'm looking for is here.
I'd like to have a cup of coffee with milk. I'd like to have a cup of coffee with milk.
So if I clear that, you'll see that the last thing that I've said is now at the first suggestion in chat history, and this phrase that we said previous to that is also showing there. And the way that phrases are suggested in chat history is based on 3 things. It's based on how recently you've said something, which is why these ones are appearing here without having to even type anything. It's also based on how frequently you say something. And the last thing is that it is based on your location as well. So as long as you've given Grid permission in the settings when you set up your user to use your location, then the suggestions you would get might be different if you were in Starbucks than if you're at home or at the office. So the chat history suggestions are customized according to your location and how frequently you say something and how recently you've said it. Okay, so you might be thinking that there are times when you wouldn't possibly want something that you've said to be added to your chat history. You might be having a sensitive conversation, or you might be talking about someone, and then when that someone is in the room, you wouldn't want that to appear in the chat history, and so on. So there's lots of reasons why you perhaps wouldn't always want something added to chat history. So we've added a really quick way of solving that issue, and that is just to click on settings and then turn on private mode, and you'll see here that it's changed colour. So private mode is on, so anything that I now say won't be added to my chat history. So let's just verify that. So let's say I'm not too keen on the new therapist.
I'm not too keen on the new therapist.
Okay. It might be that when you've got a therapy appointment, you wouldn't really want that to pop up in your chat history, but we've turned private mode on. So let's just verify that if we type the word therapist, some phrases that are already in chat history with that word are in, but the phrase that I just said hasn't been added to chat history. Turn off private mode. Again, just go back into settings and toggle private mode to off. It's also possible to manually delete a phrase from chat history. So sometimes you might have spoken some phrases and then afterwards think that you would rather they weren't in your chat history. You can go to manage chat history here in settings, and what you need to do first before you go into manage chat history is type the keyword using the keyboard. So let's do that. Let's go back to our coffee example. So I'll start to type the keyword, then I'll go to settings, manage chat history, and let's say that I never have coffee with sweetener. I don't, so I could remove that. And that's now taken out of chat history. It's also possible to manage chat history in settings as well, if you needed to do a lot of phrases all at once. So let's just come out of manage chat history. And clear that. I'm just going to pop back into settings to show you one other important thing in here, and that is that you can change your keyboard layout. So let's go into that, and you'll see we have three choices. QWERTY is what we were using. There's an alphabetical layout, and then we also have a frequency layout, which is optimized for Switch users. And the layout of the letters is optimized so that the most frequently used letters are in this corner here, because that is if you are scanning, then these are the cells that you'll get to first. So this is to speed up text entry again. And the layout is optimized so that the most frequently used letters in the first 2 or 3 letters of a word are the ones that you'll access most quickly. And the reason for that is you will, as you saw earlier, you will normally only need to type 2 or 3 letters before the word that you're aiming at will appear in the prediction cells here. So this layout is really efficient for Switch users. If you want to switch back again at any point, it's just to jump back to settings, change keyboard, and I'm going to go back to the QWERTY layout for the rest of this webinar. Okay. So we've had a look at word prediction, we've had a look at chat history. The next thing we're going to look at is quick phrases. And these are pre-stored phrases that are organised by category for fast communication in specific contexts. So if I click on this cell here, that will take me to the quick phrases page. and there are a number of categories that are on either side, and they're at the sides. This is optimized for touch users so that you can change the categories just like with your thumbs because they're at the edge of the screen, and then the actual content of the categories appears here. The currently selected category is highlighted in a different color. So as I select those different categories, you'll see that I get different phrases offered here. And when I select one of these phrases, the text is spoken straight away. I don't need to click a speak cell or anything like that.
When do we eat? I'm hungry.
So we've pre-populated the quick phrases with some commonly used phrases in these categories, but the thing about it is that these pages can be easily customized and you don't need to go into edit mode or anything like that. The user themselves can edit these pages using their usual access method because we have these add and remove cells here. So I'm going to show you how you can add a phrase. So the first thing you need to do is the text that you want to add, you need that to be up here in the chat writing area. So I'll just need to jump back to the keyboard for a moment to get the text that I want to add. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the phrase, I need more tablets, to the medical appointments category in quick phrases. So I'll type that phrase.
I need more tablet.
I need more tablets. And we'll jump into quick phrases, switch to the medical appointments category, and then I'm going to select add and choose this empty cell here. And that's now become part of that page. And similarly, you can remove a phrase. So say if I go to the shopping category this time and I want to remove the can I pay by card cell, select remove, you'll see that the cells are now highlighted in red to tell me that I'm in remove mode. Select that cell and it's gone. So you'll notice also that we have 3 custom categories here, and we've left these so that people can add their own categories, and you can add the phrases in exactly the same way to these custom categories as I've just shown you. But the one other thing you might want to do is to change the label on these cells. So I'm going to change the first custom category here, and I'm going to make it a work category. And for this, I'm going to need to go into edit mode in Grid. So to do that, I click on the menu bar and then edit. And now I just need to select the cell that I want to change. And all I need to do is change the label, which you'll see here on the ribbon bar. So choose change label, type the new name, hit enter, and that's done. Now I'm going to finish editing and save my changes. And now we have a work category, and now I could go ahead and populate that with work-related phrases. Note that it's not only these 3 that you could change. You could change the label on any of these other cells as well if they're not appropriate to an individual. It's all customizable. So from the quick phrases grid, you can also jump to the message banking grid. And this is where recordings of specific words or phrases are used instead of the synthetic computerized voice. And so a typical use case for this would be someone perhaps with a degenerative condition like motor neurone disease would be able to make a series of recordings while they still have the use of their own voice, which can be used afterwards to carry on speaking with their own tone and intonation for important phrases. So again, the user themselves can record phrases without having to go into settings. There, you can do it right from within the grid set. I made a couple of example recordings beforehand. So
my name is Trevor.
This message here is using a recording of my voice. But if I want to add a new message, then I would just go to record new message. And it takes me to this keyboard page first of all, because I need to first tell Grid what the text of the phrase is that I'm going to record. And I'm going to record the phrase, hello everyone.
Hello, everyone.
And then when I select next, I've just got this simple grid where I've got a record button. So let me record the phrase. Hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
Once you've recorded the phrase, it'll be played back so you can see if the recording was what you wanted it to be. You can listen to it again if you want. And if you need to record it again, you can. And you can record another phrase as well, but we're going to do save and finish. So you can see that this has now been added to my banked messages. So it is possible as well to organise banked messages into categories. For this you do have to go into settings. So if I go to menu and then into settings, it's within speech and then message banking. So I'm going to put hello everyone into a greetings category. So I'll select that message and edit, and I'm going to add a new category called greetings. Now at the moment that message would appear both in the top level, so like the default category, and in the greetings category, but I'm going to take it out of top level and then click OK. And you can see here now that that message is within the greetings category. Click OK to come out of settings, and so these messages, they remain in the top level, and then within greetings is the hello everyone message. Just to note as well that within those same settings, you can record from here by going to add, but you can also import messages. So perhaps someone may have recorded a series of banked messages using a voice recorder or another piece of software. You can open a message there to import it like so. And that'll be now in my top level. Okay. So I'm going to jump back to the home grid now and just show you one final area of Text Talker, and that is the store and retrieve message buttons. These buttons allow you to quickly switch between two conversations or to handle interruptions. So imagine I'm typing a phrase.
I hope you
And as I'm typing, someone asked me the question, do you want a cup of tea and how do you like it? So I don't want to lose this text that I've been working on because I need to come back to that. So what I can do is store the message, answer the question.
Yes. Please. Two. Sugars. Yes,
And
please,
then
2
I can
sugars.
retrieve my message.
Enjoyed.
And carry on with it.
The.
So it's good for if you get interrupted. It's also a good place to temporarily store some phrases. If you know, for example, you were going to the doctors and you wanted to make a list of your symptoms or something like that, it's not something you particularly want to add to quick phrases because you might only need it on that particular day. So it's a temporary storage area, so you can store several messages in there and then use them when you're ready to do so. So I'm just going to clear that. Just before I draw to a close to just give you a few minutes for questions. You may have noticed that although I said that you can use Text Talker for eye gaze or head pointer, there's no rest cell visible on the grid. And I just want to show you how you would make that visible. If you have an eye gaze camera connected, or in your settings you've set up in the pointer settings for dwell to select, as you would for a head pointer, then a rest cell will automatically appear in the grid. So let's just do that now. So I'm going to just select an eye gaze camera. Like so, and the rest cell now appears. And if I were to reverse that setting, then the rest cell will disappear again. So that brings us to the end of the tour of Text Talker, and I hope it's given you a good overview and shown you some of the key features, and I hope you could hear and see it okay. There will be a recording as well, and I think you'll get emailed a link to that if you signed up for the webinar. If you have questions other than right now, but if you have questions afterwards, feel free to email me or to email our brilliant support team, or visit our website where there's a whole load of training resources, learning resources and a knowledge base, and there's also an online chat window where again you can speak to our support team. Okay, so if you bear with me for 1 second, I will bring up the web page that should display the questions. I did have to close it earlier because that was the thing that was causing the sound echo. So bear with me for 1 moment. Okay, so thanks for your questions. I'll just quickly run through these now. In quick phrases, how do you change the label and not the message? On that particular grid, because of the type of cells that are used, the label and the message do have to match, because it uses a type of cell called a word list cell. And the major advantage of using the word list cell is that you can change the content of that cell without having to go into edit mode. And also, this addresses the next question, it will automatically add a more button if that is full. So if you wanted cells that had a different label from the message itself, then you would use a standard write cell to do that, and you could edit the grid set to add those in. The settings dialog box did not show, sorry about that, I'm not sure why. So you wouldn't have seen the fact that I could import a recording, that's the next question. But yes, it is absolutely possible. Just go into settings and then add and then browse, and you can point that at either an individual sound file, or if you've got a zip file containing a whole load of recordings, you can import them all at once. Is TextTalker compatible with call center? We don't have within TextTalker a text messaging grid, an SNS grid, so it's not incompatible. It rather there just isn't a text grid. But what you can do, there are two things you could do. You could use our Fast Talker grid set, which does contain that functionality, or you could add a cell to TextTalker that switched to our SMS accessible app. So you could just switch between the two grid sets if you needed to use both. Is TextTalker compatible with Grid Player as is? Unfortunately, no, it wouldn't be. There are some commands on some of the cells that wouldn't be compatible without doing some modifications. Okay, I'll just leave it for one moment, see if there are any other questions. Great, thank you, Nash College, for your comment there. So thanks everyone. Hope that's been useful. As I said, do feel free to contact us on any of the ways that are there on the screen at the moment. You should receive a link to the recording, and hopefully we'll see you on another webinar in the future. Thank you very much indeed.